Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Michael Regan, along with my co host, Katherine Peterson. And today we're welcoming another guest onto the podcast, one that I am confident you're going to enjoy because I know a lot of things about Roy Meshel. One of the things you're going to learn quickly is he's a master storyteller. But, beyond that, the guy is a husband, a dad, he's a lender, a business partner, even a cyclist. He'll be glad to tell you a little bit about some of his cycling adventures. But what you need to know about him in terms of 30 years of credibility in the business world is this guy has founded not one, but two mortgage companies, as well as been a leader on a couple of other platforms. We're not going to review his resume. I just want you to know this is a guy who has had unbelievable experiences, and he's been able to bring them together into some really great video content on a channel he's created. And it got me excited enough that I wanted to bring him onto the podcast. But Catherine, I shouldn't discount the fact that you also have had some history in a parallel universe with our friend Roy. So welcome back to the show, Catherine.
Good to be here. And I don't know if Roy even knows this story, but the first time I saw Roy was he was on stage with Todd Duncan, and he was different than everybody else. And because of that, he stuck in my mind. And then many years later, I met him at a fun dinner, and I was like, "Hey, I saw you on stage, and you were." Like I was kind of really curious about him because he's one of those people that you just don't forget. And so I was lucky to later become friends with him and have great, unforgettable moments with him as well that maybe I'll bring up. We'll see. So I'm so excited for this episode because Roy is so full of energy and always makes me laugh. So be prepared for that. And thanks for being here, Roy.
Thanks for having me. And different is the most polite way to describe me, so I appreciate that.
No,
Well,
that's good. That's
we're,
good.
we're a lot of
Memorable.
things, Roy. We might even be polite. We'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see how this
yeah.
goes. Catherine, as you and I were preparing this episode, I know one of the things that really drew my attention was Roy. You had recently invited me to come by your office. We had a chance to preview a new series you were promoting, and this isn't the first video series you put together. You've had lots of different themes in your branding over recent years, but you really intrigued me with a phrase I want to introduce to our audience, and it was this phrase. Nobody wants a mortgage. They want the moments. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because isn't that the truth? And yet it's not just a catchphrase for you. You really built some incredible storylines around this. So, Roy, tell us where this idea came from. Like, how did you decide that we needed to tell stories about the real moments instead of the mortgage itself?
So it started so many years ago. So when I owned State Mortgage, one of the things, like, when you're running a mortgage company, is everyone gets caught up in the loan is a loan number and all the matrix of how we are from application to clear to close, or from application to closing, or all those kind of matrix that make mortgage companies run, which are totally important, but not the most important thing. The most important thing is someone is going to live in that home, unless it's an investment home. Someone's living in the home if it's an investment home too, I guess, if they're renting it from the person. But for most of the loans we do, which are primary residence, someone's living in that home and they're picking that home for a reason. And it's not the reason that we have the best matrix on clear to close, we have the least conditions, or we have the best rates, so the lowest fee. It's because they have these moments that they want. So once a month, we used to have a customer letter, because technology is different now, right? So back then, we'd have a customer email us and tell us their story, and then we tell it to the whole staff to kind of reflect that, like, hey, like, what we're doing is important, but here's the real reason we're doing it. And it brought everyone back to, it's not a loan number, it's a family, or it's a person. So that's the origin of it. And now, technology is different. So we're like, all right, let's make it a video series.
So Roy, I love that because really we are working for our clients and we are working for those moments and those memories that they're going to make in that house. So, but you didn't just stop there. So now you've taken it another step and kind of modernized that process. So for everyone that hasn't seen your videos, give us a little bit of a preview into kind of what you're doing today with that.
So, we reached out to a ton of past clients and said, hey, we want to know the best moments in your house, like the best moments. We financed your home, but we want to know your best moments. And I will tell you that some of the stories, like reflecting on right now, and I'm like the exterior is the tough New Yorker. Like some of them make me tear up inside, like just thinking about some of the conversations I had, because some of the moments are not what you would expect, right? Like everyone, like I love my kitchen, I love to cook, I love this, I love the cul-de-sac because my kids play. Like those, you expect, but there's some moments that you're like, wow, like I don't know that I didn't know I was a part of that. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what's your process for that, Roy? How do you dig into that story? I mean, you reach out to these past clients. I'm sure it's probably like every personality. There's probably somebody who's like, oh, really? You'd love to hear my story? Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you all about it. And then there's somebody who's like, that's kind of weird. Why do you want to know? How have you managed that communication with your past clients so that you can bring some of these stories out into the universe?
So the first email we send them is a video and an email saying life's a collection of moments. We want to know yours. And the people you're talking about first are like, oh my God, this is a great idea. You want to know my moment? Here it is. Other
Yeah.
people don't answer the email. Other people kind of answer the email, but like, yeah, like, I don't know. And so we kind of pester them and then we send them a couple of emails and then I call them and basically say, like, hey, if you don't want to share, that's fine, but here's what we're doing. But if you have a great moment, and those are probably some of the best ones. Like those are some of the ones that people say, well, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but here it is. And, Michael, you previewed the best one that we've had so far, in my opinion, with me is we did a veterans loan and the whole thing, he wasn't one of the guys who likes the spotlight shined on him. So in a phone call he ended up, we had this conversation, and it's funny, he texted me this morning because I sponsored a whole lot of veterans golf tournament this morning and it was his, right? But like he doesn't know he's my most amazing moment. And his
Mhm.
moment was like, hey, like I got deployed. And he goes, and I missed everything, right? Like you think about like, I know Catherine, you have children, all that stuff, like sports events, right? Where you're on the sideline and you're like, so proud of your kid and they scored and all that stuff. And he missed like, the moments of, school meetings and all that stuff and birthdays. And then he's like, but I got a leave and I was coming home and me and my wife planned that we wouldn't tell the kids. And he goes, my
oh,
kids, and you can only say so much in the 60-second video, but he's like, my kids are the kids who never answer the door. Like, my wife could be cooking 17 dishes and the doorbell rings and my kids are like, okay, she'll get it. So they plan this thing and the wife yells at the kids to, answer the door, answer the door. And it was him. And, even now, get emotional about it, listening to it. And I've heard the story, like, I've told the story like 10 times now. And he's like, it was the greatest bear hug I ever had. So, like, I'm sure the underwriter, when they were underwriting his loan, wasn't thinking that, right? And the
mhm.
closer and the escrow officer and the realtor, none of them were thinking that, hey, I'm creating this amazing family moment for someone who's one of our nation's heroes. And I think it brings it all into perspective, like when we're signing loan docs and we're looking at pay stubs and we're talking about debt ratios, like all that matters. But how amazing is it that we didn't create the moment, but we helped, finance that moment that like, hey, dad came home and surprised me, which those kids will tell their grandkids someday, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's one of those moments that their kids are going to say, your grandfather was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and one time he came home and this is what happened. And so, like, when you think of the loan closer, the loan doc person, the underwriter, the loan officer, the processor, the assistant, like, they probably don't think I'm creating like this kind of world-class moment, but we are. And it's important to, remember that that's what we're doing.
Mhm. Wow, that's powerful. I'm going to let everyone just like sit on that for a second. And here's what I love about Roy is he has an ability to find these times. And what I know about Roy, like this is not the side you see on of Roy every day. I'm tearing up thinking about Roy now, getting emotional. So, but it like Roy's goofy and fun and all that stuff. But what I love is he's able to take because he's such a good storyteller. He's able to take these moments and turn them into something really powerful, and not just to connect with his client, but to connect with the audience about why we do what we do every day. Because ultimately, that's why we do this. We don't do it because we're closing a loan. We do it because we love people. And that's I think what's coming out with Roy is he's always loved people. And that's so obvious with this. So I love that you're doing that. I swear there's a question in here though. So kind of tell me the impact that it's had for you and your team so far.
So the impact's been super positive. For me, I've been doing this for such a long time, so it's easy to get jaded. I'm like,
Yeah.
like they call me, they want a loan, we discuss some numbers, we discuss the neighborhood, we discuss the price. I send them a link, they give me some information. The realtor's like, how's it looking? The listing agent's like, is it a good deal? Blah, blah, blah. We get an appraisal that comes in. Like we go to loan docs, we discuss how much money they have to come in to close. So it's super easy to get jaded. I think of it sometimes like a Michelin chef, right? Like you're making that same meal every night, but someone waited 7 months for that reservation, right?
No.
And someone's like, this is going to be the best anniversary we've ever had, right? And so you could get jaded because you made that same meal 700 times, but then you put it out and it goes to a table and someone's like, this is the best 10-year anniversary we've had. I can't believe it. We're here and how good this meal is. So I think what it's done is it definitely energized me like, hey, like when, we have days that suck, right? Like all of us, and that's not exclusive to the mortgage business by any means. Like everyone
Yeah.
I know has days that suck, but it helps re-energize you. That says like, the kid with vertigo, the veteran, the golf story that I put out that, we did this great golf home for this guy. And it was like the first time his wife is like, he's really splurging because he was a self-made wealthy guy. And she's like, he doesn't like, one of the things she told me is he steals straws from McDonald's so we don't have to buy straws for the house. Right. And like, this is a guy with an 8-figure net worth, right? And you're like, dude, really? You're stealing straws? Have the price gone that much? And, he finally splurges on a golf house and you think like the moment's going to be golf, and it's not golf. It's that he's sitting on the patio with his wife having a glass of wine, right? So it just re-energizes, I think, me and the rest of the people who are involved in the mortgage process at Local Mortgage that like, hey, like we're going to create that next story. And that's what's important.
Yeah, bro, when you're telling it that way, it makes me realize how many angles to this story actually exist. Because to your earlier point, often in that exchange, the flow, and for the listeners out there that are in the housing industry, they understand the flow of real estate. They were tracking with you. They understand,
Right.
hey, this comes in, then you do this, then you do this. But really think of how many people potentially are a part of this story that don't even know it. You said it yourself. Like sometimes we don't even realize unless we ask the story behind the story, or as Catherine called it, the why behind the why. I think that's powerful because once you're illuminating that, now you can go back to your processor or your underwriter or your funder or anyone else in this process and say, I hope you know the role you played in this. You might have thought what you did was like that Michelin. I went to Belmont last night with Lori, which is a beautiful restaurant here in Scottsdale, the sister to Cafe Monarch. And it's that was the visual you were giving me is these
Right.
Michelin rated chefs who are preparing these amazing meals. You're right. For them, it's the same story again tonight as it was last night. But for me, that was special. We got to do something special. You get to highlight that. What does it feel like when you get to share that with people who maybe never thought about the role they played in this amazing moment?
I think it's totally awakening that people, there's been people who teared up, right, because of those moments, for sure. I'm one of them, and yeah, I have that. You're blowing my whole hard exterior New Yorker obnoxious guy persona, but I think it's awakening for them that they get emotional. They're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, holy shit, like I was a part of that, and I think it just brings like purpose to it, right? Like I think that there's some jobs out there, right, where you get that immediate gratification. Like one of my friends is a cardiovascular surgeon. Like when he's done with, his loan part, he has saved a life. And he knows it. And everyone in that room, the nurses, the anesthesiologists, the other doctors, everyone in that room knows they've saved the life of maybe a dad of four children that are going to see their dad again. But we don't get that sometimes, right? Because we get, how'd your closing go? And they're like, it was great. Like we went to the title company, we signed some docs, we gave them, we got the keys, we're good. But we don't get the moment sometimes because that moment might be a year later, 6 months later, 4 years later. So I think it's been really awakening to people and kept them energized on like, here's the big picture. Like we have the job, for a few reasons, right? Monetary is one of them because like everyone else, we need to provide for our families. But the other part is we get to say we did good at the end of the day. And I think, that's super cool that, now since we've been doing it, when I meet someone and people are like, what do you do for a living? And now I tell them I help people create moments. And they're like, what? And then I tell them what I do. And they're like, I guess you do help create moments. And I'm like, yeah. And like, most people would answer it that like, I do mortgages or I sell money or I finance homes. And I'm like, not really what we do. We help create moments and some great ones. And, again, some of the ones you would think you would hear are not what you hear. And then you hear these moments that are like unbelievable. Like another one comes to mind, like one of the clients I reached out to, like on the phone, he's like, another one of those, like, here's my moment, but I don't know that you want this. And I'm like, well, let's try. Tell me what you got. And he's like, my dad died. And like immediately you're like, I don't know how this is going to go to where it's a great moment. And they're like, we did a celebration of life. And, I have a huge backyard. And it was filled with people telling stories, laughing, crying. We took out photos. We told embarrassing stories about my dad. And everyone, see again, everyone was laughing. And like, I know my dad was looking down, super proud that that's how we celebrated his life. And like, so not what you expect, but it is, to that family, that's a great moment that without that big backyard, that moment wouldn't be the same.
Catherine, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking you've got to be sitting here like because you're in the same seat Roy is in, different markets, but you guys
She just does it better too.
Well, there's that.
Yeah, there is that. I mean,
but you really get some of these same. Is this just blowing your mind to think how many stories have existed that maybe I just didn't slow down enough to ask? I don't even know. And just what we're hearing from our friend Roy is probably happening over and over again in all of our pipelines. We just haven't slowed down to listen.
Yeah, so I had a client in my office yesterday, and this is what but she wasn't a client. I didn't close a loan, but because she was doing a USDA direct loan, we don't do those loans. But apparently this is like 15, 20 years ago. I helped her through the process and fought for her with the get like her income approved with this other entity. And she's like, I will never forget what you did for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, what did I do? And part of it was I had forgotten. And I think that's what I wanted to bring up. We forget these things that we do for people and we forget these moments that we've created. So she was in with her son. And I was like, oh, same age as my kid. I was like, wow, here we are. And she's like, I tell everybody to come your way, even though you never did a loan for me. And I was like, wow, that's awesome, right? So, but I'll tell you what, if what Roy is doing is magical because he will remember and he will be able to go back to those moments, not only for him and his team, but for his family. Like your kids are going to hear these stories. So I love this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Roy, you're a guy that has always had this remarkable ability to give people more than they expected. That's just your nature. You don't even know it sometimes. I'm glad I get to call this out because it wouldn't be the kind of thing you would self-tout. And yet I think if we look back at your career, whether it's state mortgage, whether it's some of those years at Bradley or Bay, or now what you get to do with local, which is such a great brand, by the way, you're giving people more than they expect. And this, we're highlighting an aspect of this. I think this is honestly part of who you are. I mean, have you always just thought that way? Like, whatever the average expectation is, are you always shooting to exceed it? Is that just how you're wired?
I think I'm kind of obsessed with like customer expectations,
Mm.
and I think I'm obsessed with it in my personal life. So I think it translates to business that, you know, just exceeding expectations in my personal life when I'm the consumer is something I love. And then when, you pay for, you're paying for something and you get what you expected, and the person's breaking their arm, patting themselves on the back, like I did a good job. And it's like, well, no, that's actually what I paid you for. Like I parted with money for this, and this was the expectation. So I've always been, I think, obsessed with like, hey, we should exceed that expectation. We should find a way that the customer said, like, yeah, I heard you were good at mortgages, and I heard it's a stressful process, but this was amazing, right? And I think I've always been obsessed with that, and I'm always trying to find ways to make it better.
Yeah, that's powerful because think about our business. We live in a world where reviews are common, and we're regularly getting asked to leave a review. Sometimes it's a 5-star review, sometimes it's a scale of 1 to 10, whatever
Right.
the survey is. What I just heard you say is, hey, just because you did your job doesn't make it a 5-star. Just because you did your job isn't a 10 out of 10. In fact, I'm putting words in your mouth. Maybe what doing your job is, that's a 5 out of 10. Now you got 5 more opportunities to impress me now that you're just doing the job I hired you to do. That seems to elevate the level of experience for anybody you're going to interact with.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of the analogy I used a lot of times is you're not amazed when the plane lands, right? You wouldn't get on the plane if you thought there was a good chance that it wouldn't land. So yeah, that's, doing what's expected. You're just landing the plane. Now, if you can make the flight super memorable, that's a different story, right? Then it's elevated, and you're like, yeah, this was better than I expected. So
Catherine, that analogy makes me nervous because if Roy's the pilot of my plane, I think he's going to want to do a barrel roll so that later I'm like, wow, that was memorable. I'm not sure if I'm ever getting on that plane again. But yeah, no, all joking aside, that makes a ton of sense because you're right. In the housing industry in which we operate, so many things that we do that we act like we're, acts of God or remarkable are really what our clients expect in the first place. They came to us expecting us to figure it out. They came to us expecting us to have better options than they had available to them. And so what you're really doing is you're saying, let's set the bar properly so that when you are later reviewing this great moment, you could even be a part of that moment, meaning they might even reflect like, boy, you helped us figure out something that maybe we didn't even think was possible before we met with you. I mean, wasn't that somewhat the story I saw in one of your videos of even the bridge loan? I mean, all lenders know about bridge loans, but you told the story of the power of that for this family who simply needed a good night's sleep. Can you highlight that story for us? Because I loved it.
yeah, so that was a good one too. Yeah, like we're putting out a bunch of good ones because they're all emotional, and those are the ones we put out. So their deal was I'd done their mortgage, I did a good job, and so when they had a problem, a real estate problem, they called me and said, "Here's what happened. Our son has reoccurring vertigo." And they loved their house, right? It was a good neighborhood. The schools were good. The kid had friends. They had friends. Everything about the house they loved. Then your child gets reoccurring vertigo. And like as parents, we know like diseases suck. They suck so much more when your kids have them, right? Like if you have it, you just deal with it. But when your kid has it, it's a different ball game. And so they said, we want to stay in the neighborhood. We just have to have a single story because we're so afraid of our son falling down a flight of stairs at night, right? And so the whole thing was they were saying, like, we're going to put our house for sale, but like, how long will it take to sell? And when single stories come available in our neighborhood, they go like that. So, we found the solution for them. We're like, all right, you can do a bridge loan and your house won't have to sell. And the second a single story, comes out, and it's a greater story, like you can only fit so much into the 60-second, Instagram thing, but the story is really so much greater, right? because they had a good realtor too that they reached out to. And here's what separates I think the realtors does the expectations and deserves like, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. And then the realtor did above the expectation. So a normal realtor would have been like, yeah, I'll see what comes on MLS and we'll keep track of it and we'll find, if second a house hits MLS that fits the criteria, we'll jump on it. Right. So that's what's expected. This realtor did something different. They sent a letter with the people's name and the kids' names to every single person in the neighborhood. And they say, you probably know them, blah, blah, blah. And, it's a small, a smaller subdivision. So everyone kind of does either know each other or know of each other. Like, oh yeah, those are the people with the white Honda Odyssey, that kind of deal, right? And they sent a letter with the families' names and everything and said, if you're thinking of selling your house to every single story house, like call me first. We love to keep it with someone who loves the neighborhood. And that's how they found a house, right? Someone said, oh my God, like the crazy thing is we are in the process that we're going to sell our house. And the deal never hit MLS. And, it was that realtor did both sides of the transactions. And there's something satisfying for the seller too, right? Like if I'm selling my house, but I'm also doing something good, there's something satisfying the day of closing, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, like we're selling to someone who really loves the neighborhood and who really needs a single story. And they still, got what they were asking, right? I mean, you still, the real world still exists where like we'll sell it for this price. But there's something great about that, right? And that's one of those things where the realtor really went like they were a 10 out of 10 because they went above that 5. They sent letters and came up with this whole game plan and made it happen. And so this, I wish I could fit that all into the video, but like it was a great, like everyone went beyond what was expected. And the people are super happy. And like the thing is, when you think about it, right, from the realtor and my perspective, like we did the right thing because we wanted to do the right thing. But the ancillary benefit is if anyone goes up to those people and says, do you know a good realtor? They are not just going to go, here, I'll send you the contact. They are going to be like, do I know a good realtor? Oh my God, let me tell you the story. Like, this is the only realtor. It's not a good realtor. This is the realtor. And they're going to say the same thing, like, do you know a good mortgage person? Do we know a good mortgage person? Here's the story. Like, this is the person you want to use. You don't want to call anyone else. You're calling Roy. And I think, that's the ancillary benefit of all that.
Yeah, it's a different relationship, right? It's you're not just their lender,
You're not a
you're
vendor.
yeah, I mean you're the problem solver and you've become a part of their family essentially by doing this for them. So I love that. And here's the other thing to bring up. So Roy didn't start in mortgage 2 years ago. He has been around for a bit because, he
I'm old.
has. I didn't say it.
Roy, are those authentic gray hairs in your
They're
beard?
authentic gray hairs. Most people are just amazed I have hair.
Hey, it's an
Good
impressive
job.
head of hair.
Yeah.
But the other thing to just bring up is Roy's energy is amazing right now, and you can feel it through video. And he's been able to come up with something that's really, really impactful for him and his team, but also his clients, his social media sphere. I think it's important to point that out that it was a way for him to re-energize his whole business. And I think I just didn't want to let that go by. I was sitting here thinking about this and I'm like, I've known Roy for a long time, and this is probably one of the most energetic I've seen him. And he's already magnetic, but it's like, I'm like, oh, I want to hang out with Roy again really soon. So I just am so happy to hear this story and excited to hear more about it. I watched a couple of videos and loved them, and I can't wait to see more.
I can't wait
Well,
to do more.
yeah, Catherine, I couldn't agree more with that. Roy, I want to thank you because what you're doing is you're naturally operating within your style of storytelling. But I think our audience is getting a glimpse of what's possible when we look beyond just the function of this transaction and we ask the right questions, we learn about the story, and then at some point you actually have to care enough to act on that. You're doing all those things out of your natural style, but I want our audience to know loud and clear that, it's not that anyone couldn't do these things. It's that most people just don't care enough. And I'm so glad that they get to see how much you care, because that really does help separate you. You're really doing something that I think is special. And I think when you operate a boutique brand like you do with local, it allows you to reinforce the whole reason you operate a boutique brand is you don't want to be caught in the herd of all these other lenders that look like they all do the same dang thing. You have created a way to stand out. And it's not just that you're a good storyteller and you're funny. You're also very driven. You're also, I mean, your ability to get things done is really powerful. I just want to thank you for being vulnerable, because that vulnerability, I hope, lets our audience know, like, quit making excuses. There are a lot of great stories out there.
For sure. Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, well, we certainly have enjoyed it, and for our audience that's tuned in today, I hope you'll consider a couple of things. One is share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. There may be a lender, a real estate agent, someone in the housing industry that will relate to some of the things we've talked about. But even if you're an entrepreneur, even if you're a business owner somewhere in a different vertical market altogether, don't think that these stories simply apply because the folks involved are involved in real estate transactions. This is a way of thinking, and it is a way of operating that can really separate you in any marketplace that you're in. So please consider sharing that episode with someone who needs to hear it. And as Catherine suggested, don't forget that you can find these video episodes on YouTube as well. And it's not our amazing production, the backdrops we use, the lighting, the graphics. Sometimes it's the ability to see the facial expressions of the guests that we bring in, to see that this is more than, we're not reading script here. These are folks that live this way. And Roy Meshel, you're a great example of that. And I thank you for being our guest today. Catherine, I thank you for joining me as always. And we're going to put a wrap on this episode of Building Bigger Lives. Please go out, share it, and we will look forward to seeing you on an episode again soon.